Hello and welcome. We're so glad you're here. We're Doug and Heidi McGuirk. And first of all, we just want to check and see if you're in the right place. Are you in a relationship of any kind with somebody who is using or abusing drugs and alcohol? And actually, you don't know if it's a problem or not. So you're trying to figure that out. You've been doing some research. You've been Googling to see when is it a problem, when it's not a problem. And obviously, you've been thinking about this for quite some time. This isn't just a random question. Odds are you've been kind of affected, impacted, lying awake at night, worrying about your loved one, wondering what's going on, if it's left unchecked, what's going to happen next, and it's leaving you full of anxiety as well. And so we are here to help ease some of that anxiety today. We're going to give you 3 surefire signs that this is a problem for your loved one. This is an issue so that you can feel confident taking the next steps. I don't want you to worry as well because we are going to give you those next steps that we want you to take in order to help your loved one get the most help. So
Indeed.
like I said, we're Doug and Heidi McGuirk.
Nice to meet you and welcome to this conversation. We're here to support you.
So we created Relationship Rehab as a means to help educate, equip, and empower families that are wrestling with addiction in their family dynamic. And it can really be anybody. It can be a child that you have this issue with. It can be a spouse that you have this issue.
Could be a parent.
It could be a parent. It could just be a concern for a friend that you have. But either way, likely if you're here, we know one thing for sure. You've been the hero. You know, you're really interested in learning and having more tools in your belt so that you can actually help save the day.
And odds are you've probably been doing this for a while. You've probably been thinking about it, struggling, asking these questions. How do I help? How do I improve the situation here?
You know, I think first we want to say that we're not for everybody. Okay. There's a lot of information for addicts and alcoholics, but there's not so much information for the families. And unfortunately, some of the information that is available, that is out there, is going to be information about how to detach, how to write your loved one off, how to move away and not be involved at all. And honestly, that's not the approach that we take. We really want to equip, empower, and educate you to be able to know how to be in relationship with your loved one. And unfortunately, if it gets to that point where you have to detach, teach you how to stay in a loving, communicative relationship so that you can have kind of the relationship that you really want. We all know turning your back is not an option for you. And that's why you're here.
Right. Obviously, we want everyone to be healthy through this process and dealing with all the questions that you have at hand. And unfortunately, sometimes very well-meaning, loving people can give some advice that is not necessarily going to serve you at the highest.
And the reality is, like, I know it's hard, right? I mean, you might be looking at us saying, oh, that's really easy for you guys to say, right? You're here. Obviously, you've had all this experience. You've had 10 years helping families, which we have, and that's all true. But we didn't start there. We didn't start by serving thousands of families and helping them through navigate their addiction. It's like easy for us now. But at the time when I was trying to navigate my dad's own addiction, his alcoholism, and trying to figure out as a young kid, like, what do I need to do to just get my dad to quit drinking? How can I help my dad get better so it's not impacting the whole entire family the way that it was? And of course, with you.
Yeah, well, meaning the challenges.
Worrying about me.
Yeah. So
because I had a binge drinking problem.
Didn't know she was going to dive right into that. So yeah, so that what happens is in those situations, you know that something's not right. And the challenge is what do you say? How could I approach it? How do I be the most loving and not be coming across as judgmental and, you know, putting her down and all that, because it wasn't her. And I know it's trite for people to say, oh, you know, it's the addiction, not the person, but it's challenging when the person is behaving a certain way. So it's hard to look at it as something not the person.
And this is also for the people that are in the gray area, people that are like alcohol use. What's the difference between abuse and addiction? You know, how do you really know if it's a problem per se? Some of you, you know, you wouldn't be here if it wasn't in the gray area, if you really didn't know for sure. And so we want to help clean that up because the clarity is the power. There's power in the clarity. The confusion is like bumbling about, not knowing which direction to go in.
Well,
And
the
that's
confused mind
actually,
sits and does nothing and freaks out.
right. And that's actually hurting, not helping,
Right.
right? We want to be able to get people the help that they need. And that's really at the bottom of all this.
And sadly, this isn't a wait and see
It's not a
conversation
waste.
usually. And that's what's really unfortunate
Right.
because oftentimes things are way worse than you think they are.
Yeah. So, you know what? Let's get right into it. Let's get right into the 3 surefire signs that actually this is a problem. And it's not going to be the typical, do they have bloodshot eyes? Are they tired?
Do you
Is
smell it
their
on their
money
breath?
going somewhere, and you can Google those, and I'm sure you have, Lord, I'm sure you have. But we're going to give you some different signs today that you might not have thought about. And again, you want to watch the video all the way through because we don't want to leave you hanging. At the very end of this video, we're going to give you the next right steps. We have a gift for you that we want to help you take advantage of. All right, so the first one, Doug, you were going to take this one away, and this one is about the impact.
The impact, the outcome. Like, what is the other areas of life that you're noticing are perhaps being challenged? And they could be just simple things like, are they not showing up to some of the things that were once important? Like maybe it's socialize, like networking, or if they're doing business, or going to the gym, or hanging out with certain friends. Dinners. Yeah, dinners.
Dinner.
You know, little things that at first you don't think are a big deal, but there's these secondary impacts that occur because there's a new priority. And at first they don't seem like much because they could wash it off. Well, no, I was just busy. I was tired. I was this. And
But
then
it's consistent.
you're going to notice a pattern. And then as you notice the pattern, you're going to notice that other areas start getting impacted as things go, because as we all know, how you do anything is how you do everything. So if you're missing dinners, if you're missing experiences with the family, or you're choosing not even to like want to go to any of those experiences, you know something's coming up and the person's like, well, no, I don't, they're finding ways to get out of experiences that might prevent the use or expose opportunities for awareness.
I mean, I started doing things, it started impacting other areas of my life because I only wanted to do things where I knew there would be drinking involved. Like, I wouldn't want to do the activities where I'd be like, oh my God, I'm going to have to be without alcohol. That would be uncomfortable for me, right? If I knew I was going into a situation, I would want to have a couple of drinks before I would go in. And the impact is this. Whenever you have an addict or an alcoholic in your family, that it's a problem for them, okay, there's a substance use problem there, they're actually going to be the last to know. They don't know, but they're going to be in another tip that we're going to have. They're in denial about it, okay, to some degree. So the impact is, are people saying stuff to me? Are people noticing? Is my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, saying, you know what, honey, when you drink, you turn into a different person. You're not the same person whenever you're drinking. Or a parent saying, I'm worried about you, right? Or work saying, geez, they're calling in sick. You're starting to notice other people are noticing its impact long before the person is. Maybe the kids are like, oh, well, that's just mom's late again. Or, dad promised he'd do this, but he's tired and he's sleeping all day. And so what are the areas of life? If you look at the family dynamic, is there an impact there? Can you see it? Is there less interaction? Is there, like I said, are the children starting to notice? Look at the work situation. Is there a lag in employment? Are they having a problem consistently showing up for work? Are they late a lot? Is it showing up in their finances and other areas of their life? So likely it will start to permeate, like Doug said, other areas.
Nope.
So the second thing that we have is this is really interesting because, again, when somebody first starts using alcohol or drugs, it doesn't look like a problem at all. It looks like a great solution.
It is the solution.
But it kind of looks like, and I want you to think of it this way, like an abusive relationship. All right, and this is how you can tell again. Number 2, it looks like an abusive relationship from the outside looking in. So you have the person at first, they're using, and it's wonderful, right? They're in like the romantic kind of honeymoon phase of their using. And maybe they are more fun when they have a couple of drinks in them. Maybe they don't have any problems at all and they just drink a little bit and it's no big deal. Then all of a sudden They feel like they're powerful. They feel like they're on top of the world. The drink or the drug makes them feel really good. Maybe the pain medicine started as a way to actually alleviate the pain, and so it was working once upon a time, right? But then, like any abusive relationship, the recruitment phase starts to actually take the person away from the people that matter most. And so the drugs will start to isolate that person, or the abusive relationship will start to isolate that person. You'll notice, like Doug said, they're showing up less. They're not around as much. The abuser will say things like, "You don't really need your family. They don't really understand you anyway." Guess what? Drugs say the same thing. "Oh, your mom doesn't really understand. She thinks that it's a problem. She doesn't really know you." It'll start to lie.
Because when the person is using, they're feeling good. When they're around the other people, they're feeling uncomfortable. So the behavior then starts showing up to isolate so that they could just stay feeling good, in quotes, because the drugs and alcohol are increasing dopamine, serotonin, all the neurotransmitters. Whereas when they're in situations with family or friends that are maybe questioning them about what's going on, that feels uncomfortable.
Yeah. And so they'll start to isolate. Now, the abuse will start to happen where there'll be an introduction of harm, right? A threat of harm, meaning a little bit won't be as dramatic at first, but it'll be something where they almost get fired, or they almost get a DUI, or they almost, just like the abuser will threaten, "Hey, I will hurt you." Right? Or they'll say, "If you do that again, I'll be outside of your work and I will," so it's threatens to harm. It's like, "Ooh, that was a close one. Thank goodness I didn't get caught. Thank goodness I didn't have that drug test at work. Thank goodness." But based upon what happens now is how they react to it. 9 times out of 10, they just go right back into using again. That does nothing to scare them or to worry them.
Well,
They
and
rationalize.
well, I was to say, just like in an abusive relationship, after the abuse, the abuser comes back and then showers that person with attention and love and so forth. So the drugs and alcohol come back and make you feel good and all that. So the answer to the stress of almost losing my gig, almost getting the DUI, almost losing all of that gets then relieved by the very use that created it.
So after the introduction of harm, then the actual abuse happens. Okay, if they stay in it long enough, right? Then they do lose the license. They do get pulled over. The children do comment. The parents do confront. The wife does threaten, "You need to slow down." The wife will say, "Look, you've got to can't drink the hard stuff." You know what I mean? You got to try to rationalize and minimize and try to do whatever. So maybe they'll have the abusive incident, and sometimes they'll cool out for a little while. And what you'll notice is maybe they'll cool out for a little while, or they'll minimize and rationalize or justify the use. "Well, I only had that DUI because I was drinking, a little bit before I went out, and then I drank more and I didn't realize." Or they'll find a way to rationalize the event. "Well, the kids, I was tired because of that," or "I have to smoke pot because I had the anxiety and I just shouldn't have mixed my Ativan with my alcohol." They'll start to rationalize, just like Doug said, the abuser will start to rationalize the abusive behavior. Then after that, they'll try to be on their best behavior. And they'll do everything they can to prove to you, "No, no, 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 I got this." And that can last for 24 hours, 2 minutes, or 2 weeks, or 2 days, or 2 months. And then they'll be on their best behavior. A honeymoon phase will happen again, where it'll look like, "Okay, I do have control of this." But then right back again, the abuse is going to happen again. And so that's the cycle. And the problem is, just like people in an abusive relationship, they actually they stay in it because they don't realize they're in an abusive relationship. Just like the addict or alcoholic has no concept they're actually in an addictive cycle. They just think that they're, didn't use right that day.
And what's so interesting is, if you hear the language drug abuse, it's actually they're being abused by the drugs or the alcohol, and it's not the other way around. It's actually,
they think they're in control, but
yeah,
actually they're not in control at all.
right.
And just like in a person who's in an abusive relationship has the delusion that they have any kind of control at all whatsoever. They have absolutely no control at all whatsoever. And so that's a sign. It's like, then you might say to somebody, "Oh, okay, I see that. There has been a threat of harm. There has been actual consequences. There has been a change in their behavior. There has been things going on. But then why do we stay stuck?" It's because oftentimes another telltale sign is that third sign about them being in the role of
The victim.
yes.
So one of the things, if you have been paying attention to a lot of what Heidi teaches is talking about the adult children of alcoholic experiences, and the addict is the victim. So what does that look like? Well, the victim is the person who's going to be blaming their external circumstances. It was because X happened. It was because my family doesn't love me, because they don't understand me, because, the government, because I stubbed my toe, because if you think about it, just if you look at people's relationship with drugs and alcohol, it's very interesting. People who are in that relationship of abuse actually will find any reason to use. And that's almost still that victim mindset. So it's sunny out. Yay, I get to use. It's raining. Oh, I get to use. I'm happy. Yay. I'm sad. Yay. Which basically means they are in a addiction to the relationship of drugs and alcohol with every external experience rather than their own. And then even their own internal experience, it's almost that inner voice is an outside voice being hypercritical, justifying, rationalizing within. And those behaviors start showing up in everything. So it doesn't matter what's going on when you have a conversation with someone, they will give a million and one reasons why it is the way it is. That's outside of their control.
And there's not going to be any kind of like, oh, wait, maybe you're right? I can tell you for me with my drinking, it was much easier for me to, look at my father and say, that's an alcoholic, right? He was drunk all the time, right? Didn't know if it was raining or if it was Tuesday, right? It was very clear to me. But with my own drinking, that denial crept in because I was a binge drinker. And so I had that, well, I don't drink every day. I don't need it. I don't really have to have it. I could go without it. Every time I drink, I don't get drunk. Now, see, I can rationalize all that, right? And I can say, well, clearly I don't think I'm an alcoholic, so pour me the drink, But the reality was, it was impacting my life. My relationship was suffering, right? So if somebody comes to me and says, hey, oh, wow, you're drinking, I think is an issue here in this relationship. How do I know if I have a drinking problem? Because the minute I hear that, I launch into every reason why that's not true. And I start to bargain and barter how I can drink. Well, maybe I'll just drink on Saturdays. Well, maybe I just won't drink the hard stuff. Maybe I'll just drink the wine. You see, now I
can have just one.
I'm already rationalizing and, or I'm placing the blame. Well, I only drank that much that night because you were really doing this to me. And that's why. So you can see the behavior that I adopt whenever I'm confronted is a telltale sign that there's an issue here, right? Anger, resistance, resentment. I can sit here and call you a name. I can call you a purple elephant, right? And you can go, that is so stupid. Why is she calling me a purple elephant, right? That is the dumbest thing in the world. But I could call you a loser, an idiot, or an alcoholic. And if one of those things resonate, you'll get mad. Right. And so when people would call me an alcoholic, I'd be like, I'm not an alcoholic, But the reality was I had a substance use disorder, right? And I was a binge drinker, and that was a problem and affecting my life. And so now what? Maybe you're sitting here. Well, first of all, we didn't give you the number one. We're going to give you a bonus tip right now because that's how we roll, right? If you're here and you're watching this video so far, just the fact that you Googled this, I'm going to tell you, yep, they got a problem. Okay.
Something ain't kosher.
Something ain't quite right. And you're here. And so now what? Now, I promised you that we wouldn't leave you hanging, and we're not. We believe in generosity. We believe in empowering you, equipping you. We believe in over-delivering. So we're actually going to go the next step with you. If you follow the link that's been provided here in this video, you're going to be taken to a place that has a free training on the top 10 mistakes families make when dealing with addiction. And so we want you to download that free resource so that you have it in your tool belt, because now you've said, surely if they've had one of these things, you go, oh man, if they've got all three, you go, oh no. So now what? Now you need to be equipped with the information that you need.
So those 10 steps, those 10 tips were basically a case study from our experience of almost 10 years of working with families and people who were in treatment, that we noticed that we saw these patterns over and over again. And it wasn't rocket science. We just noticed how these families were showing up. And it was our pleasure and privilege to provide opportunities for these families to find healing, to get closer together, to find a way to basically elegantly and as easily as possible, effortlessly deal with the challenges that they were faced with. And it was our pleasure and privilege.
Yeah, I mean, it's like one thing to go, hey, I overcame my own binge drinking problem, right? I'm 10 years sober, right? It's another thing to say, oh, yeah, I helped my father, right? When he was in his recovery and helped detach from that. And it's another thing to say, oh, yeah, my husband weathered the storm with me. It's another thing to teach and apply these philosophies day in and day out at one of the world's leading drug and alcohol treatment centers for almost a decade, where the tools were really put to the test with hundreds of families that came through there. Thousands of clients that have come through there. And like Doug said, that was our research that we did. And we've compiled this list of the top 10 mistakes for your benefit. So do not miss out. Go download that resource right now. And then just to let you know, because we really want to help you, you'll be given an opportunity to be taken to a program called Relationship Rehab, which is a step-by-step process of exactly what to do. What is enabling? What is a boundary? How do I help? What's my role? What's a relapse? I mean, everything you would ever need to know about addiction.
What's behind the addiction, right? Drugs and alcohol are not the problem. They've been the solution. The solution to what? And what has your relationship been with dealing with all these challenges?
Step one, just go download the free resource. If you like what you hear, you believe that we can help you, we'd love to take you the whole way home. But for now, just do the next right thing. And that's download that resource so you can make the difference in your loved one's life that we know you want to make. We'll see you on the other side. Take excellent care.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.